So you arrived here in late 70s. How much Portugal was open, let's say, to foreigners, to Americans, because it was almost after the revolution, and there was a lot of communists all over the
Yeah.
place who are not the most friends with US, with
Well,
different sexual orientations, with Jewish, like you. I mean, I'm sure you had some challenges. Can you take us through that?
sure. Yeah, the biggest challenge was being an American. Actually, the nobody knew what a Jew was. When I first came here, people would say like, "How do you know you're Jewish?" They couldn't figure it out because being Jewish in Portugal had been taboo for 300 years of the
Yeah.
Inquisition, and then through the fascist dictatorship as well. So people just, what does it mean to be Jewish? Do you not believe that Christ was the Messiah? What do you do at Mass? We don't have Mass. Do you go to church? No, we don't go to church. We go to synagogue. It was a whole learning curve for the people I knew about what is Judaism.
Mm.
The hardest part was being an American because, as you alluded, the left wing in Portugal, particularly communists, always thought of America, for better or for worse, as an imperialist
Yeah.
monster. So people would treat me very badly, and even in public, they would say horrible things about America to me at public dinners. They would say America has no culture, America has no history, America, and I had a very hard time dealing with that. Not only because it was insulting. Imagine someone saying, "Oh, Italy has no culture. Italy has no history. Italy has no talented people. Italy has no wonderful university." If you were Italian, you might get offended. But more than that, it was, I'm not an American ambassador.
Mm.
I'm just me, Richard Zimler. I didn't create the war in Vietnam. I didn't bomb Allende's palace in Chile and create a coup d'etat. I didn't allow the Indonesians to invade Timor-Leste. I had nothing to do with any of those things. I'm just a little person. And so when people would hold me responsible for America's foreign policy errors, I didn't know how to react. And at first I would explain, well, I'm not an American ambassador. I have nothing to do with any of that. But they didn't understand. They just looked at all Americans as
Mm.
imperialist, horrible, wealthy people who like to exploit the rest of the world. And it took me a long time to get used to that and to stop arguing. I learned that those people have a cassette in their head. They have this cassette loop
Yeah.
going,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they don't really want to hear any contradictory information. So there was no point in me arguing because the tape loop just keeps playing and they don't hear anything else. And I remember once a student of mine said, America has no culture again. And I thought, well, what about jazz? Jazz is a wonderful form of music that was basically invented in America, mostly by African Americans, but not only African Americans. Many Jewish Americans, like Benny Goodman, were extremely involved in the origins of jazz, learning a lot from classical musicians like Debussy. These were very, very talented and intelligent musicians. And so I said, well, what about jazz? Charlie Parker, Bessie Smith, Louis Armstrong, the greatest jazz player ever, possibly, according to most jazz aficionados. What about them? They're all Americans. And this kid replied to me, oh, but they were all Negroes. They were all African Americans. And I said to him, you're not only ignorant about American culture, but you're also racist because
Yeah.
Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald are as American as Thomas Jefferson and George
Mhm.
Washington. And so when I had that conversation with him, I realized there was no point in arguing. So
Yeah.
for years after that, when people would say horrible things about America, I wouldn't say anything. There was no point. And so I gave up. Now, of course, Portugal's extremely different. Um, we people tend to fluctuate. There are people who love everything about America. Oh, Americans are so dynamic, and New York is incredible. and the film industry and Bruce Springsteen and and so you go from people who think America is a paradise to some people who still think that America is the worst place on earth. So, but I have to say that most people are now somewhere in the middle, which is probably a good place to be.
Yeah, I would say that one of the reasons why people, or there are more people who are reasonable, is because now we can travel in a way that we couldn't in the past. We have
Absolutely.
access to the US through the whole world via the internet. So everything is humanized, for better or for worse. That things are tangible. Like we can.
Absolutely.
Like I had already a couple of people talking from the US on this podcast. I don't know them. It just happened, and I learned so much, and I could tell that to others. So we don't create these dragons, these monsters, these angels. In case there's a fascination that we did in the past, because everything is much more like us, which I think is a great thing.